Boom! Welcome in. Welcome in tonight to Big Duke's Virtual Race Hub. We are joined by Mr. Ryan Vargas. Ryan, I am excited to have you on the show. Had a lot of comments from a lot of my chat that they were very excited to have you on the show. So welcome in, man. Glad to have you. Thanks for taking some time out of your night.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be here. It should be a fun time.
It should be a good time. So we were just talking pre-show. I was talking about how I was stunned to realize that you were just 25. I thought you carried yourself a little bit older than that. So tell us, in a short 25-year span, but that was a couple years ago. You were in the Xfinity series, right? So that was 23, 22 era to maybe 21. How did you get there? To give us a brief summary of Ryan Vargas' racing career.
Yeah, so I'm actually 24. I turned 25 in a couple months.
Okay,
but
a little ahead of myself.
It's like, man, it's crazy. It's like 25 is around the corner, right? It's that little scary thing around the corner. But no, I started racing when I was 11. Started racing what's called Bandoleros, little third scale size race cars, little Briggs and Stratton lawnmower motors in them. Did that for a few years before I moved up to a street stock. And those things are just as fun in real life as they are on the sim. Such a blast to drive those cars.
Yes.
And did that when I was 14. When I turned 15, I moved into late models. Drove for Ep.7 Racing. Dave Ep.7. We fortunately lost him recently. He gave me my first real big break in racing. Then 2017, bought our own car. Very much a short-term goal there of like, hey, this is our chance to try and do something. And thankfully we had the right stuff under us. My team did a good job and I learned a lot, and we ended up winning a good handful of races in the late model.
Nice.
That got me the attention of NASCAR, the D4D program, and all that stuff. Got to be a part of that back in 2018. So I was still 17 at the time, and moved to Charlotte as a 17-year-old, and just truthfully haven't looked back. Ran Xfinity when I was 18. Made my first start with JD back in 2019, and just haven't looked back.
The wheels turned fast, huh?
They did.
That happened, like it kind of got going, and then it's like, bam, we're here. Let's go. Right?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting situation because I ran, like I mentioned, with the D4D program with Rev back in 2018. And then at the end of the 2018 season, they downsized from 3 cars to 2. And, I beat my teammate in points, albeit, he's arguably one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever seen, just raw talent. But
Yeah.
um, at the end of the day, that when they downsized, I was the new guy, right? So, I was kind of left on the outs there, which is a business, right? I get
Yep.
it. I totally understand it, still do to this day. Um, but it was kind of like, oh man, I don't have anything lined up, right? So,
Yep.
um, hit the revisited the playbook. Went back to late model racing in 2019 and locked that in. That was a big thing for me because I wanted to lock that in. That way, I was consistently in a race car, and
Right.
then really worked hard to put a deal together to go run one Xfinity race. And that race, I still say to this day, that race was my do or die race. If I didn't perform in that race, I was done. Legitimately. Like I went into that race knowing that because I was 18 years old without a ride and washed up. Like truthfully.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
I remember back. It's funny you say that. I remember back in the day we were at a test at Nashville. I was a Bush Series official at the time, and it was Blake. Not Blake. Who was it? One of the. It was when we had the little boxes under the dash. We were at a Nashville
Mhm.
test, and I can't remember which guy it was, but he was a rookie, and he was saying something about the rear end. He said, "Well, when these rookies get in the car," and I'm like, "Bro, you're a rookie. Like, what do you mean?"
Yeah.
Like, but it's funny you say washed up at 18 because, man, you can cycle in and out of that sport so very
Yep.
fast, and it's so unforgiving. Like, you don't even realize you're gone until you're just like, "Oh, whoa, what
Oh
happened? Wait,
yeah.
come back."
Yeah. I
Um,
was I was very much I was very much out.
yeah. So what is Ryan into now?
So last year ran full time in the NASCAR Euro Series, had an absolute blast. Did some part time Xfinity stuff with Harmon and stuff. Just keeping my toes in the Xfinity garage, right?
Yep.
Xfinity is the place where I kind of want to make a home.
Mhm.
But at the same time, uh, you know I'm, I was 23 last year, 24 now. Like I'm young, now is the time for me to go and do these big career swings. This is the year. Like last year was the perfect year for me to go to Europe and race full time. That was like, there was no better time than then. And
Right.
thankfully it was a very successful campaign. My premier sponsor, Critical Path Security, they supported the whole endeavor. Um, and it was just such an incredible campaign doing that, working with the folks at Race Planet, Blake and Mullins Race Planet. They did a great job, kind of taking me under their wing and, helping me out a lot, especially, we came in and, everything's just kind of, placed in front of them and they have to kind of work with it. Right. And so
Right.
they did a really good job with everything and taught me a lot. And, for me, I just wanted to be in the top 10 consistently. That was the
Yeah.
big thing for me. And by the end of the season, we were a top 10 every single race, which was important to me.
That's
Um,
nice.
I think we wound up ninth or 10th in points or something like
Okay.
that. So, solid year. There's some things I would do different, but other than that, it was just such a fun campaign. And, if I could ever go and do something like that again, I would. But this year is going to be looking a little bit different that I can't really get into just yet.
Right on. Tell me the Euro series though, is that a oval focused
No,
oval that's more of a road discipline
all
series,
road.
right?
It's all road course. That's
That's
why that's why to me going and being in the top 10 was important because it proved to me that I could compete. And I didn't
yeah.
run, so there's two divisions in Euro NASCAR. There's Euro NASCAR Pro and Euro NASCAR 2.
Okay.
I ran in Pro, so I ran in the main
Okay.
class. And so the talent level in that series is very high. I mean, truthfully, you put the top 15, 17 guys into a pretty decent Xfinity car, I guarantee you they'd be able to go out there and lay it down.
Okay.
That's just how good they are. And I mean, and the cool thing too is, everyone out there is just super nice, super genuine people, super gregarious people, just super welcoming
Right.
to me, right? Like that was the biggest thing to me was that they, took me under their wing, and just treated me like one of their own, right? Like it was like I wasn't this outsider coming from, overseas. They just
Right.
were like, they raced me hard, but we all had a lot of mutual respect.
But that's what racing is, right?
Yep.
So that kind of leads me into a question that Chris asked, and kind of where I was getting. It's a different discipline, one that you wanted to prove that you could, and but you're on tracks that you may not have necessarily raced in real life, but maybe you have on the sim. I take for instance, I pulled up some footage on YouTube a couple days ago, and one of the first things I saw was a Brands Hatch
Hmm.
video. Man, I love running that track
Yeah.
on iRacing. So that's the question is, what was the biggest learning experience on iRacing when you got over to the European series where, okay, I may not have been here, but I've kind of been here. Maybe some sights, maybe some bumps. What of all, what's your biggest learning experience there?
Yeah, I say all the time, obviously you're never gonna replicate the feeling of driving a race car when you're sitting, in a little
Right.
thing like this at your house,
Absolutely.
right? But what you are gonna do is give yourself the visuals and the sight lines and all the little, tidbits that you need to go and perform. And for me, I tell everybody, it's like iRacing can absolutely get you 70% of the way there. Especially I remember back in 2020, 2021, when we were just showing up and racing, no practice or qualifying.
Right.
Those were my formative years in Xfinity. You know, I had to basically trial by fire go out there and race with no practice or qualify. My first lap, everybody's like, "Oh man, Talladega is so crazy. I can imagine racing there." And it's like, yeah, now my first lap ever at Talladega was when we took the green flag.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's crazy to think about some of the things that I had to do then, but being on iRacing, absolutely helped me, get acquainted for those situations, and it also helped me when it came to, racing in the Euro Series. I found a really good car combo. The late model stock, actually, if you put a road course setup in it, it drives very similarly to the NASCAR Euro car. I would say it just has a
Interesting.
little bit more grip than the Euro car. The Euro car is a little bit more slidey.
Right.
But overall, the even the lap times are really close and comparable.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is a interesting tidbit of how you can arrive to the same driving style with just a little bit different car.
Yep.
What's your favorite car to run on iRacing?
Mm. I, I like for me, I love next gens at the super speedways. I am so I found a way in those things. I
Did
like
you?
if you put me in a race like that, you'll see me at the front. Am I gonna win? I don't know, but I'm gonna be up at the front.
Right.
Um, I really love it. It's fun. It's very arcadey, right? You're going in there, you're slam drafting and all that stuff,
Right.
but you also have to be uh what's that? I'm trying to find you have to be disciplined with the pushes you do, the
Yes.
runs you take. It's more it's we jokingly say how speed racing is a chess game, but with the next gen car on iRacing, it's like turned up to 11, and I really enjoy that aspect.
See, so that's another thing I want to ask is because we've seen this in real life, and I in my virtual mind compared it, right? Like some of these super speedway wrecks that you see on TV, and it's like, oh, this guy made a bad push or he. But if you look at it, like sometimes it's so momentum driven these cars, and it's like that on the sim sometimes too. It's like sometimes you can't stop. Like it just goes where it's going to go, and if
Yeah.
and if that hole's there and you wind up there and then it closes,
I find myself very rarely blaming people for super speedway incidents and just
right.
chalking it up to
It just
it's a speedway.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just what happens, right? Like I
Yep.
I spotted the Daytona ARCA race this year, and we all saw how that was.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was spotting for Ryan Roulette, and
Okay.
we just played a race where we drove our own race. We did, and that was how I approached it the entire time. I said, I want you to run this race like how I'm gonna run my Xfinity races here. We are going to do our thing. We're not gonna worry about everybody else. If
Mhm.
they zig, I don't need you to zig. You keep doing what you need to do.
Right.
Um, and we ended up finishing. I think we were one of probably 4 cars without damage in the race, and finished 9th.
Did you
So
get tore up there at the end too? I was down there,
yeah,
and I was
no,
down there with Shane Huffman's and Shane Huffman's crew, or down there in his box with everybody, and they got absolutely torn up after the race. So the 88 didn't know the race was over, and
oh
just
yeah,
that
yeah,
was
no, it's
that car got absolutely destroyed.
it was funny. So we took the checkered flag, and our crew chief is Todd Parrott, which is a pretty neat deal. And
Yeah,
we just finished 9th. You know, as Ryan's first real opportunity, kind of racing hard at the end of a super speedway, right? And so we were all real jazzed. And Todd's
right.
keying up like, "Hey, good job!" And as Todd's keying up and talking, I see. Because I mean, like when the checker comes out, I say like back it down, and then like I kind of like let them do their thing. Well, I see them going into one. I see the tire smoke, and I'm just like, Todd's talking, and all of a sudden, I'm just pressing on my go low, 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 get down, get down, get down, get down, get down. And eventually, he heard me, or at least maybe he did. I don't even know if he did, but
Maybe he just saw it. He was just
yeah,
aware.
maybe he just saw it. Which
Yeah,
you always need to be aware.
yeah. So how long shifting back years? How long have you been on iRacing? How long have you been
I got
sim
it.
racing?
I got it when I moved here, so 2018. I very much hardly touched it. In like the first year or two that I had it. I didn't really get on iRacing until around 2020.
Okay.
I did it a little bit in 2019. In 2019, I did it quite a bit. Um, when I started running Xfinity races, like
Hmm.
I burned hundreds of laps at Iowa Speedway,
Right.
just so I could figure everything out, and it definitely helped me out quite a bit.
Now you had the TikTok car for a little bit. How did that come into play?
Hmm.
And did that lead to you streaming on TikTok more? And how has that parlayed into anything, or how did that even partnership even come into play?
Yeah, so that deal came together because my buddy Ryan Pastana, he put a paint scheme render on Twitter, and it got a lot of traction, a lot of people liking it, sharing it. It looked really good. It was a great paint scheme. Um, and it just so happened that the folks at TikTok, they saw it, and it came across their desk somehow. Don't know how, don't know what. Like, you would think they'd be
Doesn't
getting
matter.
millions of notifications, but somehow they got a hold of that. And through some mutual connections, we got in touch. And I mean, you have to understand, this was the first real, like sponsor gig I had pitched, right? Like
Right.
ever. Like I'd done a couple small deals here and there, and I'm very thankful for those. But this was the first time I really like sat in on a Zoom call with a group of directors, a
Right.
marketing, the global head of marketing, like all this stuff, and
Big
it's
big
like,
boy sponsors.
yeah, and I'm sitting here as a 19-year-old trying to convince them that they should sponsor me and give me, a lot of money. And it was, and again, hindsight's 2020. Are there things I would have done different? Absolutely. But it was a very successful campaign. We were able to, and this is back when I was racing for JD Motorsports, and there was an instant uptick in performance when they sponsored us, just because the fact we were able to put the right parts and pieces on our car.
Makes a difference.
We had a lot of mechanical failures, unfortunately. I'd say like I think it was like two of the races, 2 or 3 of them, we had a mechanical issue. But the speed we had so much raw speed. Like the Roval, we were easily a top 15 car in the wet. Went to Kansas. We had a power steering belt issue. And I never had power steering. I think I ran the first 75 laps before we just said, all right, this is, if something happens in front of us, we're going to wreck. So
Right.
we're just going to save the car and park it. But it was funny. I drove up to, I think, 22nd with no power steering from last.
Man, I bet
And
you
so
were wore out.
I was fine. I was just more mad than anything. But we ended up taking we ended up taking that same car, obviously fixed power steering, took it to Texas, and that's when we ran top 15 at the end of the race, and then capitalized on some good situations and ended up getting an 8th place finish. Which if anybody knows, for a team like that, that's, we just won the race. Like we
Oh,
won.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I spent a many a nights at Johnny's with Curtis and them. That
Yep.
was back when we had Curtis that was driving one car, and Gus Wasson was driving another car, and
Yep.
it was And then I also was working for Rick Ware when we had Stan Boyd driving and Kim Crosby in the Boudreaux
Mhm.
Buck Pace car
There you
back
go.
in those
Yep.
heydays.
Classic.
Man, but you know what? All the working for those teams as blood, sweat, and tears as it was, the blood, sweat, and tears was all worth it because it was
Oh yeah.
fun. Like, and I worked for some decent teams too, but I always like working for the low buck guys, if you will,
Mhm.
right? Like you had to
Yeah.
do it all. You learned faster, right? Like I had a really good time with all those guys.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so your sim rig.
Mhm.
What equipment do you run for sim racing?
Oh man. So I don't even know what this brand is. If anybody can tell me what that is,
I
I got
have
it.
no idea.
I've had this since I want to say I got this back in like 2019. Um, I initially was running off my TV tray. But my wheel is a Logitech G920. Um, my shifter is broken, and my pedals. What are those? They're Fanatec's. And that was the best investment I ever made, truthfully.
The pedals,
Yeah, pedals for sure. I'm Logitech wheel, like this thing works perfect. I love this
right?
thing. Truthfully, I feel good in it. The pedals are what made the difference. I remember when I first got these pedals, um, I went from kind of struggling in some areas to suddenly I was like running up front. It was
Right.
just like you wouldn't think the pedals would make that much of a difference, but it did.
Yeah, that's the thing with these new all this direct drive bundles these companies have come out with lately. It's like you're almost buying your stuff in reverse because at first it was like, okay, you buy a set of wheel and pedals, then you upgrade the pedals and then go for the new wheel. Well,
Mhm.
heck, nowadays you can get a pretty decent wheel that's going to last you for a couple of years, and then get you, and then just upgrade your pedals, and then that's all the upgrade you do.
Yep.
So they've kind of made it go into reverse order now. But yeah, so we had Malik Ray on a couple weeks ago, and that's what I asked him. Obviously he had some upgraded equipment, but he said, yeah, that's what I start with. He said I wouldn't have anything different if I didn't get upgraded. So
Mhm.
that's interesting. You guys all just man, that you hurt all of our feelings all the time. You guys run so good with all this bone stock stuff, and
Oh yeah.
we're over here buying all this stuff to run
You this
right
this
behind you.
this monitor is sitting on an IKEA coffee table.
It's funny because when I worked construction back when I very first started sim racing in 2008, I was doing R Factor, the VHR mod,
Mhm.
and I was running in a hotel room because we were 10 days on, 4 days off, and I would just take my laptop and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had my G27 hooked to my ironing board because I could get the height of it just right.
Yeah,
So yeah, I feel you
that's cool.
on doing everything you can. So, what do you got? What do you got coming up that you can share with us? I know you said you can't divulge too much, but what is in it? You're going to be you're going to be in America. You're going to be overseas. What where can we find you at?
I'm gonna be driving race cars, and I'm gonna be driving race cars consistently, and that's the most important thing to me. Been doing a lot of spotting lately.
Have you?
For me, driving is still absolutely number one. There's a reason why, I work 5, 6 days a week to find money to go drive race cars, and thankfully, I have an incredible sponsor, and um, Critical Path Security, Lyrgus Security, Williamsburg Contracting, KSTT, all these amazing people who, support me. Richmar Florist, these different groups. Swan Security, they're another group. They sponsored me for years, and they didn't. They ended up stepping away for a little while. Just business, right?
Right.
But they came back in
That's
December to,
nice.
to sponsor a one-off late model race. Sandy Vans, a new sponsor. So I have a lot of incredible partners who allow me to chase this dream. I say it all the time. That year in 2017, I mentioned it was a very short term investment because we were going to sell the car that year.
Right.
Like there was no way we could afford to do that. We were very much like, this is just us doing it, throwing it at the wall and hoping that it sticks. And thankfully it did. And because I remember literally I had my parents sat me down in August of 2017 and they told me that we were going to sell the car, that we were done. And then a month later, I got picked up to go move to Charlotte. So it was
Funny
like,
how it works, man.
yeah, so it worked out. But yeah, so I'm going to be driving race cars. I'm going to be driving race cars relatively consistently. which is important. I have a schedule of races instead of, oh, I'll do this here, I'll do this there. I'm still going to be doing this and there. I may even be driving relatively soon, hopefully, knock on wood.
Okay.
Um, and uh, there's a lot of doors open in a lot of different racing series, and you'll see me in most likely more than one of them.
Okay, that's good to know. So, one quick question I do have though with your streaming, because I see you on all sorts of platforms and I see you all the time. And I have noticed that you've been doing some different content lately. Did I see you on some American Trucking Sim, or was some Farming Sim or something that I saw you?
Beam and G drive.
BMG, that's what I knew. That
Yep.
I knew that was something different. So that's a question, because I had Pizza Man on, and it's interesting because you saw Carson use social media during the rain delay, and you see what NASCAR starts asking, what's talking about handing out money for people that promote the sport. I'm like, well, hell, Vargas
Yeah.
needs the top of the heap, right? Like, we are we gonna give it out to everybody or just the drivers on Sunday? But so how have you been able to, or do you use the social media to help pair some of your sponsorship and just and drive those numbers up, and maybe kind of use that as as a different outside the box type deal for your sponsorship, to say, hey, not only are we here, but we're here too, and this
Yeah.
is a new way of doing things.
Social media is key. It's a focal point for my sponsorship. I mean, you look at my following online, everything combined, I think I'm over 630,000 followers across the board.
Nice.
Um, TikTok is a sizable chunk of that, but Instagram and Twitter or X are very much catching up. TikTok's funny. You can have a video pop off and you'll gain a couple dozen
Yeah.
thousand, couple 40, 50,000 followers off of one video, and I've definitely had a couple of those. So it's like TikTok's very finicky on that front. But at the same time, I'm very thankful. Like it's cool that so many people choose to kind of follow me, of all people. I tell people all the
Right.
time, and this is why I say social media is so important. If I didn't have social media, and you were just to look at, let's be objective instead of knowing all the facts, right? If
Right.
you look at my racing reference today, and you see that I have an average finish of 25th in Xfinity, an average finish of, I think it's like 19th or 20th in trucks. Take away the fact that I was driving for smaller teams and all that. Who would care, right?
I mean, if
I'm
you
just if I
to be
had,
brutally honest, it looks
yeah,
like somebody that had just enough money to get there, and we
yeah,
ran kind of mid pack to the back of
yeah.
the pack and had a good time. I mean,
But
I'm not
but
being mean. I'm just,
no, 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 I know what you mean. But because of social media,
Mhm.
because of all this, I was able to tell the story. I was able to say, hey, I'm Ryan Vargas. I'm driving for these teams. We don't have the resources of these guys. So when I go out here and finish 18th, I'm stoked. If I go
Right,
out here and finish sixth like I did at Daytona, we just won the freaking race. If I go out here and ran 32nd, you guys are going to know exactly why I ran 32nd.
right,
People are going to know the story. People are going to know what's going on. For me, I don't use it as a platform, and I don't, and I say all this and I want to clarify. I don't use it to make excuses, but I use it to tell a story. I use it to
right,
tell what's happening. Um, and it's allowed me to connect more with people, especially because of the fact that, you know, I like being an open book. I like doing that.
right,
Some people don't, and that's perfectly fine. To me, it's gotten me more opportunities. It's opened more doors, and it's connected me to more fans simply because of the fact that, you know, I respond. I talk to people. I like race cars. I'll give my opinion on a race.
right,
I will, gladly sit here and talk about racing all that I can, because I just, you know, not only am I a driver, I am a fan at heart,
right.
right? So
Yep.
it's, I'm just very fortunate to be able to be in this position.
Right on, man. Right on time, dude. I can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day. I will say this. Friday and Saturday nights, if you're ever around,
Mhm.
starting at 11 o'clock, I run these hosted races. They're called YesCar 3D. They're 3-lap shootouts. One
Oof.
at 11, one at 11:20, one at 11:40. The midnight one is a 5-lap shootout. It's for a $25 gift card to Wingstop, but they're all 6X DQ. Midnight's 9X DQ. 87s, Daytona, Talladega, Daytona, Talladega, Daytona, Talladega.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
and then we do we give away a championship belt at the end of each month, so we keep points on all that stuff. So,
Heck
if you're
yeah.
ever around, you're more than invited and always welcome to come run with us, man.
I might have to take advantage of that whenever I'm home. I'm never home on the dang weekends,
Hey,
man. But
I'll email you, and if you're around, cool. If not,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
whatever. But hey, good luck coming up this year, and thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. I did have a segment called Straight Out of Talent, but I forgot to
Mm.
put all some stuff in this week. Dude, I wrecked the entire field this week at at
Oh
at,
man,
at
are we just talking
California.
about our oopsies now? Are we talking about our oopsies?
Yeah, that was
Is that
so
the segment?
that was my segment, was the Straight Out of Talent
I like
segment.
it. I
And I
like
was
it.
I was telling on myself this week, dude. I sailed it off in 3, down on the low side. I run low at California. I had better tires, and we were 3 wide, and we come up off there. I knew we were 3 wide, and I thought I had more room here, and I didn't, and I wrecked the entire field. And
My my biggest oopsie, my biggest oopsie was Kansas 2022 in the fall. And I carry a lot of pride in myself that I don't tear up race cars. I have, you look at the stats, I kept an eye on the Toby tracker.
right.
Like there's a lot of pride in the fact I don't tear up stuff. We're qualifying at Kansas, and I'm hauling the mail through 1 and 2, and I'm feeling this thing getting through the corner. It's hooking, and I'm like, yeah, we're good. And then it wobbles, and I'm like, all right, okay. And then suddenly coming off a 2, it just snapped sideways. And I locked it down, hoping it wouldn't go into the inside wall, and I pounded the inside wall, knocked the front clip off it,
Smoked it.
smoked it,
Smoked
smoked
it.
it, and like, set up aside, whatever. At the end of the day, I'm the only one on the dang racetrack. It's my fault. I don't like getting out of a car. Like if you go out there and spin a race car on your own, I don't care how bad the setup is. You're the one that's driving the car. You could tell if the
You're
car doesn't,
yeah.
yeah, like it's your
Your
job not to
butt
wreck it.
knew, your stomach knew, your head
Yeah.
knew, but your foot just
Yeah,
couldn't
my
get the
foot was on the
signal.
floor,
Apparently,
and so that was my one. That's my one oopsie.
it
I ever
happens.
since then I haven't had any real big oopsies like that. Um, it's just racing.
It happens. It
Yeah,
happens. Well, man, we're gonna check on out for the evening, dude. I appreciate it, and we'll check on you later in the year. Maybe we'll check on you and see what's going on, and maybe get a little update.
absolutely. No, that sounds good.
Ryan, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See ya.
Yep. All right, man, that was fun. What a good dude. That was a fun conversation. Real quick, iRacing, the Coke Series. Our boy Malik Ray still in third in points. I believe he had. Let's see. I got the results up here. Where was it at? That's not it. Here we go. I still can't. I can't pronounce it. Colin Keister. Brought home the win. It was at Vegas. It was a good race. Let's see here. Malik Malik had a 10th place finish. That's where it was at. I lost my place on the internet. I had it all laid out right here, and I lost it for you guys. I'm sorry. Michael Cozy second. Parker White, Donovan Strauss, Seth DeMerchant, Daniel Folkingham, Quentin Warman, Blake Crawford. Oh, let's see. Femi, I can't pronounce his last name. And Malik Ray is going to round out your top 10. But Malik stays in third in points. He is, where is he at? He's 8 points back from the lead. So that's a boy, Malik Ray, digging strong. 2 top 10s to start the year. A third and a 10th. So good deal with that. But we're going to be wrapping up for the evening. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to be back next Thursday night. I don't know who we're going to have on yet, but I will be updating that as soon as possible. You guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. It's been Big Duke's Virtual Race Up.